Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Put Sage on it barbecue. As always, I'm Sage. Thank you for joining me. And as promised, brisket today. Well, a version of brisket. We're doing corned beef brisket. And I had to do a little research on this myself, I'll be honest. Corned beef brisket is simply a cut of brisket that has been brined. So when you cut into it, it's not going to look like traditional beef brisket that's, that kind of a brownish color, beef color. It's a lot more of a reddish color because of the brining process. So it's got a lot more salt content. So one thing I did is I soaked it for about an hour. I know, you may hear some recommendations to soak it overnight. It just depends on how much time, how much preparation you put into it, I should say. I'm a bit of a procrastinator. Sometimes I, just kind of get a whim and decide this is what I'm cooking and this is the time I have to cook it. And this is how much prep time I have. So anyway, soaked for about an hour. So corned beef brisket, let's get to it. Okay, so you see we've got our corned beef brisket here. And this traditionally comes off the flat side of the brisket. And there's really no need to trim this. When you buy corned beef brisket, it's usually trimmed very reasonably. And again, you want to keep some of that fat content, that fat layer on there to protect the integrity of the meat so it don't dry out. And another thing I did so this doesn't dry out is you'll notice I'm using a little bit of air fryer components here. And I'm just putting it on a little bit of a raised bed here. Actually, this isn't a air fryer. It's just one of them little easy bake ovens for adults, basically. But anyway, I've got it on a little bit of a raised bed here. Again, that's so airflow can get underneath. This will save me cleanup time. And again, it'll put another layer of protection between this meat and the heat source underneath, being this pan. So again, we got good fat content, keep the meat moist. I've also soaked some of the salt out of this, as I've mentioned, because too much salt content can dry meat out as well. So that'll help keep that moist. And again, on a raised bed with a pan in between the heat source. Just to recap. Speaking of cap, I'm just drying this fat cap off. Well, I'm drying this whole thing off, actually. Just getting that moisture that was in the package off of this. You just want to pat really any piece of meat dry. I do that just because. And again, it's just like when you buy a can of corn. And what do? You open the can of corn, you pour that preservative water out, and you replace it with fresh water. So I'm just going to get this off. And by patting that dry, it will also give you a better bark in the end. The same way you can do like canned potatoes. You can get those out of the can, pat those dry, and you'll find out they brown a lot better when you put them in the skillet. So now that I've got that, the direction I'm going, you'll see a lot of people with brisket go very heavy on pepper. They will pepper this to where it looks like pepper loaf. I love pepper. Big pepper fan, don't get me wrong, but it's just almost too much pepper for me. I'm just going more traditional with this. I'm going to do a little yellow mustard binder coat. Hit it with some Killer Hogs barbecue rub so I get that barbecue flavor and not so much, again, just this heavy pepper. This is already going to be a little more pastrami-like than regular brisket. I don't want to go pastrami pepper loaf sort of fully in that direction. So I'm going to bring it on back to, some brisket roots anyway, depending on where you go, what part of the country. So I'm just going to coat that as I've talked about here, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, so I dropped my microphone in water. Hopefully it's working. But we're back. And as you can see, I've coated this with my killer hogs. Again, mustard as a binder. I didn't go as heavy with this as I would on a traditional brisket or pork butt or what have you, just because this is very high in sodium already. You know, whether or not this is very high in salt, I don't have the exact measurements or concentrations, but I do know salt is listed as an ingredient on the label. So again, I did that work to soak some salt out of it. Now I'm putting a little more back in it with this killer hogs. That might just actually even it out. It's like when you go to the gym and you burn 300 calories and then you go get a Big Mac right after. So we may have just replenished our salt. Whatever. We needed a little flavor. So once again, I went a little light. I'm putting this fat cap down. That's right. You'll see a lot of people fat side up so the fat can render down into the meat. That's all well and good. And I'm not arguing the fact that, that may create a basting quality, but I am more interested in protecting the moisture of the meat. You can add flavor from the top down, just like I'm doing. I have beef tallow. I've rendered this myself, not from a store. Not that I'm a hater. I have jars of beef tallow that I bought from Walmart, so I will use those. But so I've got some good beef tallow here, and again, that's going to really put that beefy flavor back into this brisket, because it's been cured and brined, and again, that changes the flavor a little bit. So I'm going to actually microwave this just a little. I don't want it down to liquid, just want it just a little thinner so I can kind of brush it on. I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So I heated that up, and you can see I got a good kind of a paste, right? That's kind of how I like it, where it's got some consistency to it. Oh yeah, that's going to be perfect. Just going to take a brush, and I'm just coating the top of that. Again, this is the best of both worlds. Now you've got a layer of fat that you're adding to the top, so that base down in there as you're cooking and you're getting that flavor. And you've also got that layer of fat on the bottom to protect the meat moisture as it's cooking, the moisture inside the meat. Don't be afraid to coat the sides. Why not? There. He's a happy little brisket. Little Bob Ross reference. Never hurts. Like quoting Seinfeld, Had this conversation at work the other day, and, it's always appropriate to quote Seinfeld, in my humble opinion. So there we go. Looks something like that. I've got a little surprise. I'm going to show you what that is. Okay, so any viewers of the channel have probably been asking themselves two questions. Number one, why haven't you made any kind of a brisket yet? Well, we're solving that problem today. Fair question. Question number two. I get it, man. I get the name. You're Sage, put sage on a barbecue, but why haven't you put any sage of any kind on any barbecue yet? And that is a fair question as well. Today I'm using the pellet smoker, and I'm sort of putting sage on barbecue. What I mean, check this out. These are new. I can smell this through the bag. I cannot tell you how good this smells. But this is Kingsford. you know, pellets for a pellet smoker. As you can see, basil, sage, and thyme. And this smells wonderful. And I have to thank Kings River Church in St. Albans for just giving me several bags of these to try. So I'm very excited. Thank you again to Kings River, and I'm really looking forward to this cook. So I've got the smoker set about 225. I want to put a little can of water in there, as you guys know that I like to do, just to keep a little moisture in the chamber, and smoker's heated up. Let's get this on the smoker. All right, so I bumped it up to about 250. I just decided I wanted it to cook a little faster. I wouldn't go any higher than that. 225 to 250 for a brisket. Low and slow, I think, works best for a cut of meat such as this. But anyway, you guys remember the old pellet smoker that I did some repair work on. So the good thing about this setup is, again, there will be absolutely no mess in here. So I've got that set up on the rack. I actually got a corn can full of water there. That'll keep that moist. And again, you can see that fat tallow we put on top. Gonna be delicious. All right, we're gonna close this up. Oh, it's around about noon now, I think. Might be 12:30. So we'll let this roll a couple hours. You know, we may have to spritz it, give it a little spray, but we'll check on it. When it gets about 160, 165, we'll wrap. So we'll check back. What do you think, Biscuit? I mean, we're getting it done, right? Okay, so I recently was house sitting, watching Biscuit here, and I had Bryce with me, and it was the funniest thing. Because I was at work all day, and Bryce was here, and I forget how the conversation came up, but anyway, the owners of this cat were just kind of asking, you know, how the cat was doing, and Bryce responded, you know, cats are doing good, they just had lunch. And they were like, what? Because, you know, they feed these cats twice a day, like in the morning and at night. And Bryce didn't know. He thought, you know, they were like humans. Now, nothing wrong, I guess, if you've got a cat and you feed it breakfast, lunch, and dinner 3 squares a day. That's okay. So, this cat got used to it. When the owners got home, this cat was like Garfield. It was like lunchtime, and the cat was like, where the hell's my lunch? So here's a funny thing. Does this cat look like it needs 3 squares? I don't think so. What do you think? What do you think, Biscuit? You need 3 meals a day? Beef tallow. Not a big fan, are you? Beautiful cat. All right. We're going to get back to cooking. Okay. I'm back. I took a little nap. You know, I may or may not have had a small alcoholic beverage, which made me tired. But anyway, I pulled this brisket off the grill. I actually recorded me taking it off the grill, but I forgot an audio component here. So anyway, I've got that back in place here now. But anyway, it it got up to about 170. It was about 172 when I pulled it off. Typically, I like it about 160, 165. But again, hey, looks fine. I'm just going to let you take a look at it here. Let me drop this down. So, here's what we're looking like. There it is. Again, it was about 172 degrees. I wish I had some beef broth, some kind of braising liquid, but I just kind of looked around here and I just don't. Sometimes you're just not. So, you know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a little bit more of my beef tallow. Again, just to keep some moisture in here. And I'm actually going to place that probably underneath, like so. Again, just to keep a little moisture down inside the foil. Again, I'm going to finish this in the oven. But this meat looks very good. The moisture looks very good on it. So we've gotten through the stall, what we call the stall. That's the point at which it just kind of sweats out continuously, and it just doesn't seem to get any hotter internally because it's continually sweating, cooling the meat. So we're through that. I'm going to take a little more of this killer hog rub. No, actually I'm not. Let me take that back. I forgot what I said earlier, and again, forgive me, I just woke up. I'm forgetting that this is not traditional brisket, but corned beef brisket. It's got plenty of sodium involved in it. So I'm just going to wrap this up here, put it in the oven at 325 and finish it off. So I'll see you when this gets finished. All right. So I ran a probe in it, just got it out of the oven. You can see 209. Just ran it down the center there, so I'm going to let it rest, and then we'll cut into it. Okay, guys, so it's been a long day. Confession, I ended up putting that back in the oven. You know, I mean, you saw the temp on it, but I was having a real battle of the heart here. Even though the temperature read really nice, you know, you want your brisket in that 203, 206 range. And I was getting that, but it just didn't feel as tender as what I felt it should. Because, you know, you kind of go by feel too. So I ended up backing the temp down on the oven from like, you know, I had it on like 325, which honestly was probably too high. Just, you know how it is. When you're hungry, you're impatient, you're realizing this isn't going to be done by dinner time, as it's not. Ended up having to go to Wendy's, just for the record. Because it's now, you know, 8 something at night. I should have known. I put this on at 1. You know, what did I expect? Sorry, I got a little indigestion from earlier, probably from the Wendy's. But anyway, I put it back in the oven. But again, I was having a battle of the heart. I just kind of felt if I kept cooking it, it was just going to dry it out. So I went ahead and pulled it. It did get to about 208. So I got it out, and let's have a look at it. Okay, so here it is. This is fat side up. You remember our fat cap, you can see there. Now that's giving me good news. You see how my finger just sinks into that? Right? That fat just feels like jelly. It splits apart. You see that? That is actually what you want. So that's a good sign. Again, and we got our other side here. Again, there was no fat on this. So again, I was just worried it was going to dry out. The grain runs this way, so we want to cut against the grain. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to slice it here. And again, oh my. Corned beef brisket, so it's not going to look, that fat's so jelly, I'm actually going to flip it over. And maybe I won't. Let's cut through it. I'm indecisive. It's definitely, the texture is a little different than what I'm used to. Let me try both sides. Might be a little easier if I just get that fat out of my way here. It's hot. Okay. I'll give you a view of what this looks like after I get A little bit of slicing done. Well, well, well. And this is the first time for me. So we're kind of doing this together. Okay. All right, so you can see what it looks like when it's sliced there. Again, a little bit different look than traditional brisket. I guess we'll just have to try a bite of it, right? Okay, I'm gonna take a bite. You can see it there. I know gravy's yelling. So that's what it looks like. You can get a good look there. We'll try it. It's good, but I don't like it as much as regular brisket. I'll be honest. And maybe I'm not a corned beef fan. But it's plenty tender enough. You know, if I'm honest, like I said, I was fighting that battle between trying to get it more tender and not dry it out too much. I'd like it to be a little more moist. It does have a decent moisture consistency, but I'd like it to, be a little better. But again, I was laying on that fence there, just trying to get a good balance. And like I say, I think soaking it helped pull some of that sodium out. I do get that salty taste, but it's not overwhelming. Um, but again, interesting. This is literally my first time trying corned beef brisket, and it doesn't taste like traditional brisket. That's kind of what I was here to find out. Um, it's good, but again, me personally, I like just regular old brisket better. Okay, I'll be honest. After trying this, I don't think I'm just much of a corned beef fan. It was, you know, it was good. It's just, does it taste like regular brisket? It's kind of like culture shock for myself. But I don't know that I've ever tried corned beef specifically. I'm sure that I have. It's just probably been a very long time. So at least now I know, which doesn't surprise me. I'm not a pastrami fan or pepper loaf. I'm just used to that traditional brisket flavor, and this just isn't it. And I guess anybody that's ever made this or cooked this, you probably know that. Again, I'm always learning things, always a student of barbecue. And I was balancing that line between trying not to dry this out, but trying to cook it to get it more tender. And if I'm honest, I do think I cooked it a bit too long. I should have maybe pulled it out sooner, but you know, it just wasn't getting as tender as what I like. And I actually did a little research on this, and it says that corned beef brisket specifically tends to be a little tougher. So I don't know that it would have ever gotten, like an uncured piece of brisket. So I might have been chasing a ghost there. But try again, I say. Again, specifically, I'm not a huge fan of the flavor. I don't know that I'll try to cook this again, especially to perfect it. But it was a fun experiment to do, and I'm glad we did it together. Thank you for joining me again. Put Sage on a Barbecue. I'm Sage. I'll see you next time.